All right, well, we have our participants joining. Thank you so much to everyone joining us. We're so excited for you to be a part of our Alumni Experience panel today. We have 4 ISEP alumni who are going to talk to you about their experiences. They're really excited to answer any questions you have on their time abroad. And before we get into that, and before I do have some questions I plan on asking them, I first am going to turn it over to Jolene Bechtel. She is our student advisor at ISEP, and she's going to walk you through just a little bit about what ISEP is, what the application process looks like, and then we'll get into our panel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rory. Again, my name is Jolene Bechtel. I'm one of ISEP student advisors, and thank you again for joining us today. We're really excited to share firsthand experience with you and answer any questions that you might have along the way. For those of you who may not be aware, ISEP is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to provide accessible and affordable international experiences for everyone. Our programs are immersive, authentic, and we really focus on the intercultural engagement at your host university. ISEP offers semester programs, full year programs, and summer programs, and we have a network of over 300 universities in over 50 countries. There are 2 main types of programs that we offer: exchange and direct programs. Direct programs have a specific program fee and allow for flexible housing and meal options. You're also guaranteed a placement when applying for a direct program as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. On ISEP exchange programs, you pay your home university's tuition, housing, and meal costs. You would also list up to 10 programs on your application that you would want to attend that could also fit your academic needs and your personal goals. Placements depend on the available exchange space at each university. I'm sure health and safety is a big concern for many of you, particularly with regards to COVID-19. So I want to let you know that all ISEP students receive health insurance, 24/7 emergency services, and contact with an ISEP student services coordinator. In addition, there are usually some type of health facilities and support services on campus available to students. Some single occupancy housing options are available at many of our sites as well. In the event that your program is canceled because of COVID-19, ISEP does have policies in place to protect you, and we will put a link into the chat here with our policies so you can have access to those whenever you'd like. Once you're ready to apply, you should start by creating your ISEP account at www.org/ISEP, or excuse me, .org/apply, my apologies. From there, you'll be put in touch with our very knowledgeable advising team, and you'll be able to go over your goals for your international experience, and we'll also suggest programs for you that might be a really great academic fit. Your advisor will also be able to walk you through the application process if you have questions. All of our ISEP student advisors will be available to answer any questions you might have at the end of this panel discussion. So we're happy to meet you then. And I'll pass it on to Rory.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jolene. So a big thank you to our 4 panelists who are joining us today from all over the world and all over the US. I do have some specific questions that I'm going to ask all of our panelists to begin with, but please feel free, anyone tuning in, to put in the chat any specific questions you have, and if there's anyone you want to direct that question to in particular, please also put that in the chat. And to get started, I'm going to introduce each of our panelists, and then I'm just going to ask them to give us a quick little wave so everyone knows who I'm referring to. So Conor Brennan is from Rhodes College in Tennessee in the US, and he studied abroad at University of Salzburg in Austria. Conor, can you give us a hey? Hey, Conor. And then Stephanie Campbell is joining us from Virginia Tech. She's a recent graduate from Virginia Tech who studied abroad at Tokyo International University in Japan. We also hey, Stephanie. We also have Sabrina Tiffany, who is a student at Tokyo International University in Japan, who studied abroad at Southwestern University in Texas in the United States. and Yulenda Timothy, who's from University of Johannesburg in South Africa and studied abroad with ISEP at Loyola University in New Orleans in the US. So welcome to our 4 wonderful panelists. Thank you all for joining us. So to begin, I wanted to ask kind of a question to all 4 of you, and you're welcome to, well, kind of whoever wants to answer first is totally fine with me, and we'll kind of take turns. But I wanted to ask you all, what was your motivating factor for choosing your program, the university that you decided on through ISEP, and what made you choose ISEP for your experience?
Okay, I'll go. That's okay.
Thank you. Yes, Yolanda, please.
Okay, so from my university, the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, ISEP was a program that was offered by the school to kind of, connect the students to the international, community, and kind of send us out there to really show us what the world has to offer in terms of, different perspectives in our education. So when I heard of the opportunity to, participate in ISEP, I said yes, most definitely going to apply. And, I got the email that said you've been accepted, to join the ISEP team on my studies, and I was just super excited. So what led to me choosing my program at Loyola in New Orleans was that from a very long time ago, I've always had this connection to New Orleans, rather, from, I think mainly just from television, but from just seeing, just the whole atmosphere of the city from what is represented on TV and movies. And I said, I'm going to go there one day. So when I saw the opportunity, and there was a university in New Orleans, I jumped at the opportunity. And, when I saw what the school has to offer regarding what I was studying, it was just a match made in heaven at that point. And that's really what led me to joining ISEP and choosing Loyola.
Oh, I love that. And what was your major?
So I was a major in strategic communication, mass communication, and my minor was in political science. I know it's a bit of a combination, but
that's a killer combination. That's a wonderful combination. That's very important in that field. That is so cool. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think New Orleans has such a wonderful spirit to it, and it's a place where you really get it's a very strong community feel too in New Orleans. So that is so wonderful to hear. So would one of our other alums like to answer next?
I can go next.
Awesome, thanks.
So I accidentally found ISEP. I hadn't really thought about studying abroad, but I was looking at my schedule and realized that I could graduate a semester early. So I called my parents to tell them about it, and my parents were like, have you ever thought about studying abroad? Like, this would be a good opportunity to go and not have to take certain classes while you're there. Yeah. So I literally got off that phone call and walked to the global education office, and they were like, have you ever heard of ISEP? So they told me to check out the website. So I knew I always wanted to go to Japan, because very similar to what you were saying is, I saw it in movies, I saw it in television shows, and I just wanted to go there, but for an extended period of time. So I knew this was the perfect time to go do that. And so I found Tokyo International University on the website, and the thing that drew me to it the most was that I could do a host family experience. So that was the most important factor for me, was I got to go and live with people that I had never met before and actually learn the culture firsthand from them.
Oh yeah, well that's huge. And I think that's also, it definitely takes a lot of guts and a lot of getting out of your comfort zone to sign up for that kind of experience. And I think somewhere like Japan, where the culture is so different, and that you really needed to use your Japanese, and to a host experience like that with a host family, I feel like is the best way to really get that immersion. So that's really neat. It's so neat. Sabrina, what about for you? What made you choose Southwestern and going through ISEP?
So actually I've before this, like I've never I did not know about Southwestern until my international exchange office administration told me about it. And then I searched about it. I saw it was in Texas. It was close to Austin, 40 minutes to Austin. I just want to learn. It's like the most Western, like I guess it's like the Western culture in the US where it's like cowboys and all those stuff. And it just gives me like the interest to join the Southwestern University. And also for ISEP, I always, in contrast with Stephanie, I always wanted to do like a study abroad in the US because some of my friends went to the US and I've always wanted to study there. But eventually I get a chance through ISEP, and where a lot of other organizations that are in my university, they do give some exchange program, but it's not as wide and a lot of more choices as ISEP does, and it's way more affordable.
Yeah, that's a big factor for a lot of students deciding, and to have an affordable option like that is so important, and that's definitely something that ISEP is really committed to. Thanks for sharing, Sabrina. So Conor, I'd love to pose the same question to you. What made you choose the University of Salzburg and going through ISEP?
For sure. In contrast, I didn't get influenced too much by movies, which makes me kind of feel bad to break the chain there. But I was mostly looking at two things. One, I wanted to be able to ski, and also two, I liked the dialect in German because my roommate my first year of university studied abroad in North Germany for his when in high school. And I wanted to learn enough of the dialect so that he couldn't understand me very well when I was speaking German, so I could finally lord it over him. It was totally petty, and I'll acknowledge it. So that was some of my big motivations. And as far as why I went through ISEP, my university had an option in, it was somewhere in Bavaria, but it was really far to the north, or it was here in Salzburg, with you guys, or I could have also gone to Bern, which, God, I'm happy I didn't go there. The dialect here is hard to understand. There, it's probably impossible. But so that's kind of how I ended up here, and yeah, it was a pretty good choice for me. I like it here.
I love it. And you all have different reasons for choosing where you did, but there are these kind of similar motivating factors of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, learning a different language, being inspired to like learn a culture that kind of fascinated you from TV or media and that kind of thing. So I wanted to, this kind of leads in well to my next question, which is I'm wondering kind of how your expectations before going abroad, how they were different than the reality of studying abroad. So what you thought of maybe the host culture that surprised you, some of the things maybe when you first arrived that really surprised you, or through the study abroad process that you thought, either that you thought this would be a lot harder than it was, or it was a lot easier than, or it was a lot harder than you expected. So does anyone have any instances where like their expectations were just different, very different than the reality of their experience abroad?
You know, I think, can I go?
Yes, please. Yes, you all can go whenever. Yes.
You know, I think for me, honestly speaking, because when I was in university, in my home institution, I had stayed at home. I never stayed on campus. So I just knew that going, you know, to a new country and, oh, my camera, is everything okay on my camera?
It looks like you're showing, I think your camera is on like maybe, oh. Okay, there we go, perfect.
So I completely lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay. So you were saying that I think you were saying that you were sort of prepared going to a host university thinking that it was going to be challenging. Yeah.
Yes. So I knew that it was going to be very different being on campus in a new country, and I just never really knew like what to expect. So I think that was my biggest expectation, that I didn't know what to expect on exchange. But it was honestly, it was such an amazing experience, and especially being in New Orleans where everybody feels like your family and everybody just greets you, and it's so amazing. So really just, being on campus and the warm culture, even on campus, it's almost as if everybody's your friend on campus, and everybody gets along so well. So I think in terms of, the culture of the new city that I was going to be living in and the culture of on campus, it was amazing. You really had to just, get out of your comfort zone and just meet people, and it was really fun.
Oh, I love that. I wonder too if anyone else had that experience of feeling like the culture that they were stepping into, like the host culture was also like really warm and community oriented. I know, Sabrina, like going to Texas in the US, did you also find it to be that more kind of Western hospitality, kind of that more that energy too with meeting people? Yeah.
Yes. When I first, I was preparing myself. Like I saw a lot of articles on how it's hard to kind of find local friends, but I realized that there is this Southern hospitality where people are really nice, where they just say hi to you, or they kind of like wanted to help you in any kind of way. So with like more steps, like going further at like the more you open up to people, I think people will open up to you, and you'll feel their warmth.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And Stephanie, I'm curious what your experience was in Japan, also with having this, starting off very much in a beginner mode with the language, how you found it to be meeting people and making connections with locals.
Yeah, honestly, I was worried because I didn't know any Japanese before I went. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to talk to anybody. But honestly, like everyone was very kind and very patient with the fact that like I didn't really know it. And so it was honestly not hard to make friends and find people that like took the time to get to know me, even if I struggled like communicating things. So, and like having a host family was like probably the most important factor for me, because I had like a support system no matter what was going on. So not that anything crazy happened, but like I had those people that were there for me, and like I could go home and talk with my experiences at school with them, and they'd be like, oh, like here's what they were trying to say, like here's kind
of so great
way to understand it.
Yeah, to process it and even talk through some of like the language, like to understanding and to kind of get a better grasp through speaking with them. That is so cool. That's a great point. What about for you, Conor? How was it connecting to locals in Austria?
So the one thing that I found particularly strange is the United States, we always have the campus-based system, so it's a lot easier to meet people because a lot of them sprawl a little bit, but you're either there's dorms or there's easy to find communal groups and clubs and stuff like that just make it easy to network within the university. And so that was one thing that kind of surprised me here, is I found it a little bit more difficult because you go to class and then everyone runs off here, there, everywhere to wherever they're headed. So that was one case where I found it a little bit difficult. But I came in with the expectations of them being a little bit more quote unquote stereotypical German, so a little bit cold, a little bit off-putting and not very friendly. But the one thing I will say is they were never unfriendly or anything of the sort. And a few times there were people who just went out of their way to be really nice. Like the profile I have on the screen in the little circle, dude. I was at a local folk festival, and it's like the Salzburg version of Oktoberfest, basically. And I ended up talking with some trombonist from the band, and he invited me, and then I got play in the band. So it's just
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's not always like, it's not intentionally unfriendly to say, or it's you can't really expect much of anything because the just
Mhm.
randomness of everything that just happens kind of ruins any expectations you make unless you're trying to superimpose them. So honestly, my only expectation or recommendation for an expectation is to improve. That's
Yeah.
the easy one to go with to give me my long-winded answer.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I think that kind of, you were clearly showing an openness to experience for something like that to even happen, where you get pulled into this and get asked to perform with them. So I think that so much of it is like they pick up on your openness to their culture, and then you have those kinds of experiences. Really kind of, I mean, that's kind of like something that you'd think happened in a movie, that you get pulled into something like that. And it happens if you remain open,
cool.
I think. Really cool.
For sure.
So I guess I'll move on a little bit. So I did want to ask you all about just like, I'm going to ask a couple of you specifically, what is kind of a lasting, Yulenda, I wanted to ask you this one first, about what was a moment during your experience that after the fact were either kind of a pivotal moment where it really, that really has stuck with you since coming back from studying abroad?
Okay, so when I was abroad, I really wanted to immerse myself in the culture of New Orleans. And what I did was I started volunteering in a lot of, small NGOs, and really just trying to help the community and learn a lot of stories. So one of the biggest things that I volunteered in was the food recovery network that was on campus. And what we would do is every night after the dinner service on campus, we would go to the kitchen at the back, and we'd pack up all the food that was left over, that wasn't eaten, and it would be served to the less fortunate in the New Orleans community. So that was something that I started doing almost every night. And what it did for me was, it was such a selfless act that I could do. And, somebody who would receive this meal wouldn't know that I packed it or anything, but it just became something for me to just, take that little time out of my day and just know that I'm doing something that's really gonna, feed someone and help someone, see another day. So, and it's so funny how the staff that I used to work with and volunteer with, they all became like such a family. And they would just laugh in the kitchen, and there would just be such an amazing atmosphere that really stuck with me. And every time I think about, Loyola, definitely that comes to mind, how every night, maybe from 8 p.m. until 8:30, we'd just be in the kitchen and we'd just all be talking and packing the food, and it was such a warm atmosphere. So that's definitely something that, has stuck with me, and I think will stay with me for a while.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that's such a cool. Now, is that an experience that Loyola connected you with, or did you find it on your own outside of the university?
So it's a program that's offered in Loyola. So it's not, I don't say, maybe not an official program, but it's something that the started to do. I think it's been doing it for quite a while, and I was actually introduced to it the one time I was having dinner with one of my friends, and she said, I'm going to the back, I'm going to go pack up some food. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, come, you can definitely join. And from the first day, everybody just comes in like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fine.
And from there you open up. And I think what you brought up is such a good point for anyone listening too, is that service learning and can be an amazing opportunity to feel really a part of the culture and the community where you're studying abroad. I think that it's one of the best ways to feel really invested, and then they're invested in you, and you kind of feel like you're putting down roots, and it becomes not just like a host country that you're in, but kind of a second home, really, when you do service learning and things like that. So thanks so much for sharing that. That's such a neat experience. So I wanted to ask Sabrina also, what was one of the most pivotal moments during your experience, and one of the times that has really stuck with you after your study abroad ended?
One of the most memorable experience I have a like we do a lot of traveling and everything, but I think it was when I was going back during those stressful time of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Yes, I was so happy that I got to be able to be assisted by my host universities. They're very helpful. They literally check on me every day in the dorm on like, how are you doing? On what are the grocery stores, and my local friends or people that are also living that I don't even know of. They would take me to the grocery store and they would help me kind of do my daily stuff. And then even after I go back, they were still talking about how is your traveling insurance. If you're stuck on the airport, please do call me. We have this number. Southwestern University's students will definitely get access. And then when I went home, they were checking on me. They were also kind of giving me like how is it doing in the online classes and the time difference. So I feel like I'm very help, and it's such a good experience, even though it's a bad experience, but I feel like it's a good experience for me, I guess.
No, I think it's so important that you shared that, because that's something we've seen too, is that students who studied abroad in the spring had to deal with COVID, but a lot of them felt really supported by their universities, and it kind of showed that these ties that they formed with their host university and also with the ISEP staff that were helping them, kind of it became a positive, and it also made them feel like, hey, I got through studying abroad during a pandemic. I can get through anything, right? It's definitely a stressful time, but it sounds like you navigated it well and you got the support. So thank you for sharing that. That's a really great one. So Stephanie, I actually had a question for you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you feel like you grew personally through your study abroad, through the experience of having a host family and learning Japanese.
Yeah, so I sort of like went into it knowing that I wanted it to be like a really growing semester, because, you know, there's a lot of schools on the ISEP website that people from Virginia Tech were also going to, but I like specifically chose one that no one would be going to, like no one at that time during the semester would be going to. So, because I wanted to like go alone and not have like someone that I can be like, oh, well, I'll just lean on them. You know, it's like I wanted to do it by myself and like live in a different country. So honestly, like it changed me so much because of this experience. I feel like I can literally do anything. So like anytime that I'm scared or nervous about something, I'm like, okay, you went to Japan, you lived there for 4 months, you didn't speak the language at the beginning, like at all, and you live with a host family, like you can do this.
Yes.
So it definitely boosted my confidence, and I applied to like literally, like, so now I just graduated, so applying to jobs, I'm like, you know what, I can apply to all these things because I can definitely do it. Like I know that I'll learn along the way.
It is such a huge confidence booster in terms of knowing what you're capable of, and to have and knowing that you can learn anything. If you can learn Japanese in a couple months, then that's a pretty good indicator of being able to learn anything.
Right.
So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Conor, I wanted to ask you the same question. And how do you feel like your study abroad experience has really helped you grow personally, and even you know, with your academics or whatever you want to touch on? We'd love to hear.
For sure. Well, personally, I've had to actually like start being responsible for like keeping myself alive, which is quite nice, because at home and at unis, it would typically just go to the uni cafeteria, eat there, whatever terribly healthy stuff that they're serving me, and then go back to my work. But now I don't have a cafeteria. I just live in a house with a communal kitchen downstairs. So I've had to teach myself how to cook, which has become quickly one of my favorite things to do. It's like whenever I feel bad, I just go and do that. It's probably not the healthiest way to feel better, but hey, I'll worry about that later. But otherwise, as far as the uni and education and stuff goes, as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this actually yet, that I've decided to stay here for at least another year, because I could. And because I figure if I'm gonna pay the big bucks to go to university, I'd rather pay the relatively small bucks to do it here and hopefully present, but that's beside the point. I've decided to stay here, and I've also improved my German to a point where I can like use it academically and not just like fumble about trying to make a sentence, which is nice. So overall, it's been, again, once again, I don't seem very good at directly answering the questions, but I hope that covered it.
I think that totally covered it. Yeah, it sounds like you had both, you grew in terms of your German language, but just in terms of, feeling more capable of caring for yourself and taking good care of yourself. So I think that's awesome. I love that you're working on your cooking skills. I've been doing that in quarantine too. So I wanted to turn now and see if we have any audience questions.